More than a year ago, COVID-19 sent many people home to work. And now, as the vaccine rollout reaches more than 50% fully vaccinated here in Connecticut, many people who have been fortunate enough to work from home are experiencing a new anxiety, the fear of returning to work. Joining us now is Dr. David Tolin, the director of the Anxiety Disorders Center at the Institute of Living. Dr. Tolin, thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure.
So people have been out of the office for quite some time now. So the thought of going back in can really lead to maybe they're even dreading it. How do you suggest people deal with all of that uncertainty?
Well, I think one of the critical elements is for people to recognize when they're starting to get anxious or uncomfortable about something and try to understand what it is that's bothering them. It also makes sense for us, as especially those of us that are concerned about contracting COVID, to recognize that we need to focus on what we can control as opposed to what we can't control. So you may not be able to stop the spread of COVID on your own, but you can certainly control whether you get vaccinated, whether you follow CDC guidelines, whether you use masking, and so on. And then finally, I recommend that people be able to talk to somebody about their stresses, whether it's a loved one or a professional. But it's important to make sure that you don't just go through this alone.
That is some very good advice right there. There are a lot of different return to work dates for people, whether it be a couple weeks from now, a month from now, maybe even 6 months from now. What can people do in the days leading up to heading back to the office to help with the transition and make it a little bit easier for them?
I'm a big fan of taking baby steps when you can. So start with something small that seems manageable. Do that until you feel like you can do it all right. Then you move up to something that's maybe a little bit tougher. Do that until it feels okay, and eventually make your way back to work. Now, some people may not need to do that and they can just go back to work directly. But if you're feeling really stressed out about it, it may make some sense to take some small steps, like go outside, be around other people for a while, spend some time in public spaces so that you don't necessarily have to deal with all that anxiety on your first day of work.
All right, well, those are some good tips right there. This is going to be a big change for a lot of people over the coming months. Dr. Tolin, thank you so much for your insight and for all of your advice. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.